and welcome to the Marley Bird YouTube channel. In this video, we will learn how to make the Northern Gleams knit hat. This is a free pattern available at marleybird.com, and I'm excited to get you started. I'm Marley Bird, your By Crafty bestie. Let's go. I like to start off with a long tail cast on, and in order to not run out of yarn, I want to make sure I leave a nice long tail that I think is going to accommodate the number of stitches that I am casting on for the size I'm making. Now I am using my 16-inch circular needle, and I'm going to place a slip knot directly onto that needle. My working yarn is going to go over my finger, my tail goes over my thumb, and I will position my hands just like so, sort of like a slingshot. I'm going to go up my thumb, down my finger, through this window right here that's created with the thumb, and pull that yarn out. Do this again. Up the thumb, down the finger, through the window, and pull. Up the thumb, down the finger, through the window, and pull. I want to just remind you that as you put your fingers in here and the yarn is wrapping around your finger and your thumb, it's going around the outside, okay? Up the thumb, down the finger, through the window, off the thumb. Do this for the total number of stitches you need to cast on for your size. Once you get all of your stitches cast onto your needle, it should look a little something like this. And with the long tail cast on, we get this really nice ridge down here at the bottom, which will allow us to easily see if our stitches are at all twisted around our cord. You can see here that I have that ridge all straightened out right here on the inside of my needle, so I can quickly see if something was twisted around my needle, like if it looked like that, right? If it looked like that, I could fix it and make sure that nothing is twisted because we're about to join in the round. Now that we know all of our stitches are perfectly placed on our needle, we can begin to join and work in the round. So I'm going to position my needles just like so, where the working yarn is coming off the needle on my right. I will grab a stitch marker and I'm going to place that on my right hand needle. I don't have to do anything special when I start this join, okay? I don't have to do an extra stitch. I don't have to do anything. All I'm going to do is maneuver my stitches up onto the tip of my needle. This is the very first stitch I started with, right? And with my yarn coming from my right hand needle, I'm going to begin working my knit one, purl one ribbing. So I'm going to knit one stitch. Make sure you give that a nice pull because that will pull that stitch nice and close to this one. It will loosen up a little bit as time goes on, but it's okay. We can always tighten it up later on. So that was one knit. Bring my yarn between my needles to the front and I purl. Bring my needles to the back and I knit. As I'm going through this, when I bring my needles to the front to purl, let me get that tail out of the way, and I purl this stitch. When I take that stitch off and pull my needle back to the back, I'm going to give it a little bit of a tug. And what that is going to do is pull any slack in that stitch. It's going to pull it nice and tight. So that way I get a nice and tight ribbing. So I will knit one stitch and purl one stitch. Give it a nice tug. As you're working along, you can just maneuver these stitches. Just have them flow pretty easily around your circular needle. They should not be too tight around your needle right now. And we're just going to work in our knit one, purl one ribbing all the way around until you get back to the stitch marker. As you come up to the finish, your work might be a little bit stretched out from this last stitch to your first stitch, and that's perfectly normal. It's a-okay. You can see there, it's a little bit stretched out. It's going to be just fine. Slip your marker over to your right hand needle and then continue on. So we're going to, again, knit one, purl one, and you should be knitting knits and purling purls. So as you're looking at the needle, If you are seeing a purl bump, that lets you know that that should be a purl stitch. If you're seeing a knit V, that lets you know that's a knit stitch. Now, this is part of reading your knitting, obviously, as you read the stitches that are on your needles. But given that this is just a simple 2-stitch repeat and it's just knit 1, purl 1, as long as you have not gotten out of rhythm or out of sync, you should be pretty good with just going knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1. Okay? And what you will begin to notice is that you will have stacked knit stitches and stacked purl stitches. You will do this back all the way around till you get to your marker. Once again, you'll slip your marker and continue. You will notice that if you had that little gap here, if you pull your tail, it tightens up a little bit. And then as you get probably to row 2 or 3, or 3 or 4, it's going to close up and you won't have to worry about it. But we will use this tail to close up anything down here that is unsightly at the end of this project. So go ahead, finish the ribbing for the distance written in the pattern or to your desired measurement. Once you have reached the desired measurement for your ribbing, it is time to work 1 full round of plain stockinette. It's at this time I will also transition over to the larger needles. I like to knit the body of my project with a larger needle than I do the ribbing, so that way the ribbing is nice and tight around my head and the body has some nice body to the fabric. I am transitioning to the new needle just like so. I am holding the new needle into my right hand and I am just knitting off of the left hand needle, which is the old needle. What this does is it makes the new stitches the same size as the new needle, and we will gradually have all of the stitches on the larger needle, and we can put the smaller needle away. As you come up to the last stitches here, the needle that you were using will be empty of stitches, just like so. So I can put this away. I'm going to grab my stitch marker and put my stitch marker on my new set of needles. Position my needles in place. And I'm ready to carry on with the body of the pattern, okay? Now, the body of the pattern is done in 2-handed color work, and we will be following along with the 6-stitch pattern repeat chart. We will read this chart from the bottom all the way to the top, reading it from right to left. Obviously, we have more than 6 stitches on our sample, so you would repeat these 6 stitches however many times needed until you get to the end of the round. This very first round, we will be introducing our color B with our color A. So what I want to do is grab my color B, and I will be holding my color B in my right hand, and I will be holding my color A in my left hand. And I will keep that consistent throughout this whole section, okay? So as I am following along with my chart here, I can see that I have 2 stitches with my color A, 1 with my color B, 3 stitches with my color A, and then I will repeat that. So we'll do 2 stitches with color A, 1 stitch with color B, so I will grab my color B, wrap it around my right hand needle, make sure I leave myself a nice long tail so that way I can weave that in later, and then knit. Then I will knit 3 stitches back with my color A. Okay, so that is a 6-stitch repeat. Here we go again. 2 stitches with my color A, 1 stitch with my color B. Now it's at this point, I want to make sure all of my stitches are spread nice and evenly apart on my needle, just as I want them to appear in the actual fabric. Then I'm going to take my working yarn from my color B, and as I float it behind those stitches and wrap my needle, I want to make sure that float is not squishing these stitches. That float needs to be nice and relaxed, and I just knit with my color B. And then I go back and I will knit 1, 2, 3, and that's the end of my second repeat. Do the third repeat, so I knit 2 with my color A, go to do my color B. Again, I always make sure those are nice and separated the way I want them to be. Float my yarn over and knit. You can see back here, my floats are not pulling any of my stitches together. So I have a nice float that is not sagging too much and not super duper tight. Then I will go back to my color A. I will do this all the way around until I get back to the start. As you finish up your repeat, you'll get to the start. You do want to make sure that your floats are not too tight. Now, these look like they are kind of bowing out a little bit, and that's just because the circumference of my needle is actually smaller than the circumference of the hat. But if I were to straighten these out, you see how like I'm straightening the fabric? See how those are nice and straight and they aren't pulling in or puckering the fabric? That's what we want, okay? If for some reason you have gotten to this point and yours are not kind of bubbling out like this, like they are like pulling from that stitch to that stitch really tight, like squishing up those stitches in between, then your stitching is too snug and you should rip it out and start again. This is vital. It will not block out if you have puckering or the stitches are too tight. You must have a nice float that goes from one stitch to the next that is not strangling those stitches. Okay, we want to make sure those stitches have a nice chance to become the size they're going to be. Looking at the next row, it's just like row number 1. So we're going to repeat row number 1 for row number 2. And when we go to row number 3, we're now going to increase the number of stitches that we do with color B. We will continue doing this all the way through all 6 rounds with these 2 colors. It's totally normal if this very first stitch with your color B is a little bit loose because the tail obviously is not attached to anything. So it's going to be a little bit loose. We will be able to tighten that stitch up a little bit when we weave in the tail later. So don't fret if that stitch is a little loose because it's going to be. All right. What's great about stacking row number 2 on top of row number 1 and then both being the same is that we really don't have to count. So as long as we did our counting appropriately on the first round, we know that when we get to this stitch here that's color B, we're going to be knitting with color B. We don't have to overthink about it. All right, so I'm going to continue on with mine. You continue on with yours, and I will see you when we get to round number 7. How did that go for you? Hopefully it wasn't too difficult. One thing I do want you to make sure of is make sure you don't have any puckering happening. So as you look around and you straighten out your fabric, make sure there is no puckering happening between the colors. If you are getting puckering, once again, I would absolutely start over. And if you find that you are just having a hard time because of the smaller circumference of the needles, you could always knit your project inside out. So you would purposely knit it to where the floats are on the outside, just like this. So that way it gives you a little more chance to have the floats elongated as they go from one to the next. But this is what the inside of your fabric should look like. You should have a little bit of give from your floats. They should not be so tight that they are not having any give. Okay. Now, it's at this point we are going to change colors. And even though one of the #1 rules in knitting is that you're not supposed to put a knot in your knitting, I am going to show you what I do just to keep the color work a little bit more manageable for me. First thing I'm going to do is cut my yarn that I was using, making sure that I leave a nice long tail, and then I can put these 2 colors aside. My next 2 colors are the dark purple and the lighter purple. And so in the interest of just maintaining the same order that I was holding the yarn, I held the light pink right here in my left hand. So I'm going to hold the light purple in my left hand. And because I held the dark pink in my right hand, I'm going to hold the dark purple in my right hand. Now we are beginning here with round 7. So we will once again do 5 stitches with our dark purple, 1 with our light purple. So what I'm going to do, like I said, I like to take my yarn. Where did I do with the tail? I just had it. I just had it on purpose so that I could have it. Okay, I take my tail here and I am going to grab my dark color and I'm just going to tie my purple. I'm literally just tying it around the light pink. Okay, and then I'm going to move that knot just right up close to my hat. Now, when I go to weave in my ends, I will undo that knot and weave it in. But here at the beginning, it will help it so that my yarn doesn't get all spaced out. And I find that just too difficult to work with. Like I hate it when it looks like I have a hole in my knitting. So I like to tie on my old color on, or my new color onto my old. So here is my lighter purple, pushing it right up to the light pink. And then I just push my tails on the inside. Okay. And now we just continue just like we were doing, but now with the 2 new colors. So I'm still holding 1 color into each hand. I'm going to maintain their positioning throughout. So I will simply just begin following my chart. And again, this is quite easy because obviously anytime I see that dark pink, I'm going to use the dark purple. When I see the light pink, I'm going to use the light purple. And then I continue on, again, making sure that my floats are nice and loose. I hate using the word loose, but that they are comfortably spaced from one stitch to the next, and they are not strangling the stitches that they are floating behind. So there's my purple floating behind the dark purple, and then I continue on. So now that we know how to do our color work, how to transition from, old colors to new colors, I want you to go ahead and complete the entire chart all the way through round 24. When you get done with round 24, meet me back here and we will move on to the next part of the pattern. Okay, once you have reached all 24 rounds of the chart, you can go ahead and cut off the color you are using. And it's at this point you have to decide how many more repeats of each of these 6-row sections do you want to do until your hat measures the height written in the pattern for the size you're making. So what I have right here is a full 24 rounds. So I can go ahead and continue and go back to rounds 1 through 6. And then if that's not high enough for me, I can go rounds 7 through 12, and then so on and so forth. My goal is to have this entire piece reach the distance written in the pattern before I begin the top decreases. Now on this crown, there is not any sort of big shaping that comes in. So I want to make sure that the body of the hat is tall enough that when this all comes together, there's enough area down here to actually fit around the head. So just to kind of give you a words of caution, what you might think is too long might actually be absolutely perfect. But like I said, the instructions are written in the pattern. So from this point on, I am going to repeat each of those 6 rows until my pattern reaches my desired measurement. You do the same, meet me back here, and I'll show you how to finish the top. And look at that. So on my hat here, I have reached the desired 9 inches, going from the bottom of my brim all the way up to 9 inches. And so I am now prepared to do the crown shaping, which is going to just cinch together the top of this hat with some very simple decreases for a couple rounds. So I am going to use the color that is used the most on the very last round. So depending on what round you finished on yours. So right here you can see this, what color is that? Color E. My color E, I had 5, right? And I only had 1 of my color H. So I'm going to cut my color H and I'm going to continue on with my color E to finish the top of the hat. And so all I will do here at the start is I'm going to knit one full round even with my color E, and then I'm going to go into decreases simply by working knit two togethers all of the way around. So let's go ahead and knit this entire first round. Now that I have finished the knit row, I'm going to work a series of decreases, and I will simply be knitting two together throughout the entire round. So I'm going into the second stitch first and then the first stitch on the left hand needle, and I'm knitting them together. And I will do this all the way around. So I am going to cut my stitch count in half. My stitches will get a little bit tight on my needles, but that's okay. We can kind of use them in a magic loop sort of way, so we don't have to transfer over to double points. I'll show you how that works. Once you reach the end of the round, as I mentioned, your stitches might be a little bit snug around your circular because you have half the number of stitches. If you find they're getting too snug, something you can do is push the stitches that you have just a few over here on your right hand needle and then bend the cord in half and just let it kind of pop out along the side there just to give yourself some more room. And so then what I can do now is I could continue on for my rounds. Now for this, I'm just going to do a plain knit round because it's nice to have a knit round after a decrease round. It just kind of pulls everything together. After that, there's one more decrease round, which you will be doing the knit two togethers all the way around. Just a reminder, if you have one of the sizes that requires you to knit one stitch before you do the knit two togethers, make sure you do that. After that, you will finish up and you will end up with very few stitches on your needles, and that's when we will pull everything to a close. So let me get all the way around here with this plain stockinette stitch row, and then I'm going to do one more decrease round showing you how I do it with the modified sort of magic loop method so I don't have to transfer over to double points here for the top of this hat. It's just easy and I don't need to have any more needles with me and I can work on this on the go. Just going to keep going around. Now my stitches are still working around the needle, so that magic loop that I was showing you at the start, for me, I didn't need it, so I just let it lapse. But I wanted to show you how you could start it on yours if you needed it on yours. Give me just a second, and we're almost to the end here. And then we're going to do knit two togethers all the way around once again. So we're going to take the number of stitches that you have on your needles right now, and we're going to cut that in half again. And if you have an odd number, you'll have to knit one before you knit two together so that it can work out mathematically. There we go. So I'm back to my knit two togethers. I have an even number, so I am going to just go ahead and jump right into my knit two togethers. Now, as I'm going along here, these stitches are going to get a little snug on my needle, and you'll see what I do with the modified magic loop just to allow my needles to still work. So I'm still pulling things up on my right needle. I'm sorry, on my left needle. And then as they transfer over to my right needle, what I'm going to do is I'm going to push them down. And then right here, as I said, I can kind of pull that, and it makes it so that my needles here kind of give me this magic loop effect. So down on this side too, give myself a little bit of cord. So now I have stitches on my needles and then stitches just resting on the cord, and I'll just kind of move that cord around as I need to. So I'm going to keep going, and when I get to the end of the stitches that are on this needle, I'll just maneuver that cord again. And if you wanted to transfer to double pointed needles, you could. You don't have to do it this way. But when you're just doing these few rounds of decreases, it kind of works in a pinch. All right, so here we are. So what I do is I pull this up, so now everything's on there, right? This one is fine. I'm going to put those on a cord, and then we're going to get some of these onto this needle before we make it pinched, right? Just pinch it right there. Looks like it's wanting to be pinched right about there. So I'll continue on. Almost to the end here. Oh, I am at the end here. So there's my marker, and I can pull this. You can see I have just very few stitches remaining here on my needles. For me, I'm doing the large size, so I should have 24 stitches. The last round, I'm just supposed to knit, okay? So obviously it's going to be a little bit tricky, right? A little bit tricky. But remember what I said, when you have that decrease round, it's always nice to finish off a decrease round with just a plain knit round. So right here, if I can just bring the yarn up from the other needle, see here, the yarn is coming from over here. I just want to make sure it's not so tight that it's going to pull super tight from that cord to there. I should be pretty good. So I'm just going to knit all the way around. All right, so I'm at the end of my round. So I'm all done with my stitch marker, so I can remove it. And now I want to cut a nice long tail here of this color because I'm going to use this to cinch together the top of my hat. So I've cut it off, and it's at this point. I will grab a bent tip tapestry needle, and I will thread this yarn onto the needle. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go around all of these stitches that I knit, and I'm going to go into each one as if to knit. Okay, I'm going to go into each one as if to knit. So I'm going to go in as if to knit, and then take it off. Into knit, take it off, knit, take it off, knit, take it off, knit, take it off, and then pull this through. Okay? I like to go in as if to knit. I like the way it makes the stitches look at the very end, because we're going to pull all of these together and cinch it together like a drawstring here at the top of the hat. So I think it just looks better when you go in as if to knit. And remember, any sort of little hole you get, or maybe your stitches got a little bit loose, we can always close it up with our tail here. So now my needle is all done. I can pull this. See the top of the hat right here. Give this a nice pull. You can see that brings everything together real nice and neat. And so what I like to do is I will pop through these just a little bit one more time to really just pull this together. Then I'm going to stitch it together really nice and snug on the inside, because just going around in a circle like this will not do anything. It will come undone just like a drawstring would come undone. But that's nice and tight now, so I can take my bent tip tapestry needle, stick it right down the middle, and I'm going to go to the inside of the hat here. Let's flip this inside out. And working along the top here, I do want to make sure I'm securing this tail to the top and at the same time really closing that hole up. So I'm going to give that a pull. You can see here is my finishing. I am literally just going to kind of stitch things together. So I'm doing it on the inside. This needle is not going through to the outside of the work. I have my thumb or my finger right here to make sure. And I am just essentially weaving it around, making sure everything is nice and tight. Now I'm not putting a knot in it because I don't want this to rest on the top of my head and I have a knot at the top of my head. However, I really like pom-poms, so the chances are I will be adding a removable pom-pom, and I do that by using a button and then tying on my pom-pom. So I could technically put a knot and it probably wouldn't bother me because I'd have the button there to kind of protect my head, but I'm not too worried about it because right now, man, that is like nice and secure. That is not going to come undone. So I am popping that through one last time, and then I can snip this close. Last thing for you to do here is go through all of these color changes and undo the knots that we did. Remember I told you we're going to undo those knots and then weave in your ends all on the inside here. Okay, that's what the inside of my hat looks like. And as we pop it out, here's what the outside of my hat looks like. I absolutely love these colors. They make me so incredibly joyful and happy. And I love that the top finished with that green and that kind of turquoise aqua color. Voyage Heather is what it's called. And it's just super pretty. Now, when everything is all woven in, you can give it a nice soak in the bath and let it dry overnight. Remember, it is superwash merino, so you want to be very careful with it and not overstretch. If you wanted to steam block it a little bit to try and get any sort of little puckering you might get that out, you can do that as well. Anyways, your hat is complete. I mean, that is one good looking hat right there. You could add a pom-pom if you want. But anyways, there you go. Isn't that a lovely hat? I love it. And there you have it. I hope you enjoyed making the Northern Gleam hat. I know that it is a favorite of mine already. I cannot wait to have this on as I'm out and about this winter and fall season. I mean, come on. These colors are fantastic. And all my hair fits in it as well. All right. If you would like more videos like this, check them out right here on the Marley Bird YouTube channel. Until next time, my friend, I'm Marley Bird, your By Crafty bestie. Talk to you soon. Bye. Show me love.